Welcome back to the Gruber Morning Show, and I'm Pete Gruber.
And I'm Zane Courtney.
And we are here this morning to entertain you on a number of streaming platforms. TikTok usually joins us early. They've been here for a minute or two. And we have a number of questions that are spillovers from the last segment.
From last year.
From last year, yes.
What? Are we so behind? I love this being the first episode of 2023.
Hope everybody had a good New Year's. You're probably curious about that car that's sitting behind us.
Look
there.
at that. I want one.
That is a car that is 80 years old now. These cars were created between 1936 and 1938. It's a Bugatti Type 57 SC Atlantic Coupe. And there were only 4 of these made, 3 in existence, and it is the most valuable collector car currently on the planet. And believe it or not, there's a 4th one that they can't find. So somewhere there's a 4th Bugatti.
The cheapest one you can
SC.
find.
Yes, probably. And it'll probably be a barn find. You know, somebody will find an old house or something and suddenly look in the basement and say, get this trash out of here, and there's a Bugatti Atlantic Coupe. What makes these cars so unusual, by the way, is if you notice it has that rib that runs the top of the car. And it is an alloy. It is made out of an alloy called electron, which is 90% magnesium and 10% aluminum. And those of you familiar with magnesium, it's flammable. So you can't weld it, grind it, heat it up in any way. So what you're seeing with that dorsal seam that runs the length of the car are rivets. The car is actually riveted together. And,
yeah, I'll give him another better look at that. How about this?
It is arguably one of the most beautiful cars ever made. Ralph Lauren actually owns one of these. I don't know if he still does, but
checks out.
Yeah, he was
somebody does over at Ralph Lauren.
There's a picture of him standing, I think, in Monaco next to his car, and it's a spectacular shot. But anyway, since this is a car-oriented show, we thought we would throw something up there from the prehistoric days when cars were still internal combustion engine powered.
And back when they were still treated like pieces of art and not just tools. Although it is nice to know that some of the new EVs are actually kind of playing around with that, like Aptera, that just looks like a teardrop with wheels.
Yes, yeah, very, very unusual design. Later on, we'll throw up another green screen image of a Tesla Roadster, actually my first Tesla Roadster, and we'll get a different perspective. It looks like we've got a number of questions that we could start with that came in from the last, and from this one. We've got an Instagram question.
From Anwar, hey!
Anwar, hello,
Happy
Mr.
New
Gruber.
Year!
Happy New Year, Happy New Year to you as well. And then we had some videos, or some questions from a video that we did. And Parm Mohan, for example, asks, how do you get batteries when there are supply chain shortages? Well, the manufacturers are doing a pretty good job of staying on top of that problem. And we're talking about some big companies, LG, Panasonic. So at least it doesn't appear to have seriously affected the supply of electric vehicles, of which there's, of course, way more demand than there is supply for a number of other reasons as well.
And it's also encouraging to know that more mining is going to be available here in the United States, hopefully with some of those new lithium mines coming out, new lithium and cobalt mines coming out in Vegas and North Carolina, everything like that. So that's going to be a huge help for this particular issue.
Keeping some of that supply in North America, I think, will definitely help as well for our production. Question from David Hansen, 1461. This is related to a video that we did regarding the battery module in a Model S. What we do to take it apart, why we take it apart, that sort of thing.
One of our biggest videos on TikTok.
Exactly. It's trending toward 1 million views right now, so apparently it is a popular topic. But what we're showing is the 1,200-pound battery removed from the Model S, why we have to remove it, how we open it up, and what we take out once we open it up. And we're showing some battery modules on a workbench where we're doing some repairs. So the question that David asks is, what goes wrong with the modules? Well, a couple of primary things, 3 actually. If you get any kind of water ingress or you get a coolant leak, usually those batteries or those battery modules are toast because the fluids oftentimes are conductive to a degree and you get a lot of corrosion and it kills the battery packs or the battery modules. Yeah, I'm going to turn off my dinging phone here.
It hurts to be so famous.
Yeah. So what do we do to the battery modules? Well, they oftentimes have a resistive cell, and it only takes 1 out of 7,104 cells to kill the car. And that's because of safety issues. You don't want to overcharge a resistive lithium-ion cell because it will ignite, and it will ignite all of its neighbors. The second thing we find is problems with the electronics. There are circuit boards inside. There's one board on every single module. There's 16 modules in an 85 pack, for example, 85 kW pack. We find components that have failed, surface mount components typically. So resistive cell, component failures in the electronics, and some sort of water ingress or fluid ingress, which causes problems. What we do is, of course, much less expensive than a $22,000 battery replacement from Tesla, and that's why we're popular. All right, another question from Bernie. Can you upgrade a 60 kW to 100 in a Model S? The simple answer is no, and we have a video based on that. It can be done from a technical standpoint, but Tesla won't work on your car after that because the 100 kW packs are a different car. The design of the car is different. They even get into things like airbag deployment timing changes with the 100 kW pack. Different suspension a design for the 100. So you can go up to, you can upgrade from 40, 60, 70, 75 to 90 kW, and Tesla will support that. If you try to shoehorn 100 in there, you're probably not going to be able to bring that thing to a service center and get it serviced.
Which makes sense. It's kind of like if you come and swap a truck that doesn't typically have one and you try to bring it into a dealership, they'll probably turn you away at the door. Mm-hmm. It's nothing unheard of.
All right, we've got a number of streaming questions, but let's get into some content first.
Sure.
And so what I found interesting last week is the Menlo Park Police Department in California actually has 3 Model Y police cars that they have converted. And the reason I found that interesting is Menlo Park, California, was actually the first Tesla production facility where they were making roadsters, or at least electrifying roadsters. The roadster trajectory went something like this. The body panels were made in Europe at the Lotus plant, and the panels came from Sotira in France. Mm-hmm. They were carbon fiber panels. The assembly then of the glider, as they called it, or empty shell, was done by Lotus. Then they were shipped across the ocean to Menlo Park, where the final assembly took place, where they merged the battery and the drivetrain to electrify the Roadster. So that's why Menlo Park actually has some Tesla history. Some of the statistics here are the Tesla Model Y cost $64,000 after taxes, and then outfitting them to turn them into a cop car was another $39,000. So we're looking at about $103,000 per vehicle. Now that looks like a huge price tag, but it turns out that the other vehicles, the ICE vehicles that they had been converting to cop cars, was the Ford Explorer Hybrid. And they were able to buy those for $51,600, and then another $25,000 fitting them with safety, communication, and all the equipment that goes into patrol vehicles. Now, there's a difference there in cost. The EV looks a bit more expensive, but then when you factor in the cost savings on gas and maintenance, it quickly closes that price gap.
And cop cars do use typically use a lot of gas. A lot of them are sitting at idle for most of the day. But they're still leaving the engine running. So even in a hybrid that uses significantly less, you're still going to be constantly draining a lot of that gas. So it's no wonder that you could save easily, $100,000 across a fleet just in gas savings within the next few years.
Yes. And by the way, this is not a new trend. We've actually had police departments come to us here locally, even the Tempe Police Department, curious about what it would take to get them into electric vehicles. In talking to a fireman last week, He said, electric fire trucks make a lot of sense too, except if you've got a number of multi-alarm fires that are occurring and you're needing to deploy and you don't have enough charge time to get those vehicles charged back up.
One other thing too, Pete.
Yeah.
For the cops in particular, if they're trying to catch somebody, they need a fast car, right?
Right.
So that instant torque and acceleration, if you're chasing a Tesla, you kind of need a Tesla.
Sure. But let me give you a perspective on that. Because they couldn't go with multi-speed transmissions in the EVs because they were burning up clutches with too much torque. The Tesla Roadster, for example, is limited to 130 miles top speed.
Top speed, yeah.
Well, I mean, you get even a average Corvette nowadays capable of doing 200 miles per hour. They're going to be able to outrun these poor EVs.
Well, you don't think that they've worked with Tesla or somebody to try and extend the top speed of these Model Ys?
I was about to say the exact same thing because I wonder if there is a sort of particular override or a certain almost new mode that they had to make for cop cars to kind of compensate for that. Because you're right.
What would be limiting it, right?
It would be the RPMs in the electric motor.
Oh, so it's not just a software switch that's turned on?
No, it's the actual inertia and the centrifugal force. After you get past a certain RPM, like 14,000, stuff starts flying off the armature.
Sure.
It can't hold it together anymore.
Yeah. Well, that's actually interesting. It brings me to another question. Somebody commented on our last podcast where you're talking about, you and Mark were talking about having the motor in each wheel. And they were saying that eventually at certain speeds, those motors are going to get basically rattled to pieces. Is that a real thing?
I don't know that. But it's a good topic because one of the videos I want to do this week, guys, is let's go over in the shop. Let's go up underneath a Tesla Model S, a Roadster. Let's take a look at what it takes to convert that rotational energy on that motor that is sitting longitudinally down through a transaxle to some half shafts and through some CV joints. How much efficiency loss do you have there versus putting the motor right in the wheel like Aptera does? 3 of them, and it's just a much more efficient, and it is the future, by the way. All of these mechanical conversions will eventually just be designed out of the element.
Do we know if Rivian's quad motors, each motor goes to the wheel?
I don't know about the Rivian. I also don't know about the new Lucid Air Sapphire, because that one has a tri-motor as well, I think.
Yeah.
As opposed to the older version, which was a little bit slower than the Plaid. It's now actually faster than the Plaid and has, as far as I understand it, according to Haggerty, has the fastest quarter-mile time.
It does. There's that that video. By the way, one of the reasons we have an audience is the expertise resides out in our audience as well. So if any of you guys want to chime in about these topics that we're creating questions for, we'd love to hear from you. So here's another cool thing that happened just within the last week. Do you remember we've had extremely cold weather in the United States? North America is really getting hit hard. Ontario, Canada. Apparently there was a power outage that lasted for days in Ontario, but a customer who owned an F-150 Ford Lightning pickup truck, fully charged, was able to continue to keep his infrastructure running in the home. Freezers, for example, full of food, even generating some heat. And what he was able to do was just simply go to his pickup truck, which had a number of outlets on it, with extension cords, continue to operate critical equipment in his home. So one of the things that I found interesting here was the Ford F-150 Lightning is not V2G, vehicle to grid, which connects directly to the utility or to the meter. It's vehicle to home, V to H, which is a new acronym that's beginning to circulate.
Yeah, somebody put that on our last video as well.
Yeah. So anyway, he had 11 outlets on this pickup truck. He even had 240 volts available, so if he wanted to run his dryer, he could, or hot water heater. But this went on for like 3 days, and Ford was pretty proud of the fact that he was able to keep things running in the house for 44 hours. Man, that's a week.
That is incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, that was one of the big selling points of the Lightning in the first place, was the practicality of being able to do V2H. And it is worth noting that discrepancy between going to the grid versus going into home. I think the only I know there's several vehicles that can do vehicle to grid. I know the Ioniq 5 and the EV6.
I was gonna say, do you know if the Rivian does or not? I think it
Rivian
has
does not, and I also don't think it's vehicle to home.
And then I think the Ford Lightning was billed as being able to do all that stuff for contractors.
Yes.
So that they could use their power tools and all that
Precisely.
kind of stuff. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, you go out on a job site and, that's where pickup trucks typically are. And you've got power available. So interesting, there's another interesting statistic here. Power outages in the U.S. have risen around 78% in the last 10 years. It used to be, they didn't give a percentage what it used to be. But anyway, so extreme weather conditions like this, having a vehicle that's able to provide power sounds like is beginning to have an additional benefit besides the fact that you're going green and that you've got reduced maintenance and all that.
Well, how cool is it that you're able to have a reserve power that's off grid, it's off, reliability from anything else, so that you have that backup in this particular situation that can, supply that for exactly moments like this that are happening so often.
Mm-hmm. The other thing too was the power wall.
Right.
Mm-hmm. The Tesla power walls were helping some people, I think, in the Midwest.
Florida, especially, yeah.
In Florida
we had a number of reports.
It's like having a whole second grid unconnected to the first one.
We've been in the critical power business for 40 years, and back in the day, the only facilities that had backup power were, of course, computer rooms, large data centers that could afford, those millions of dollars of investment. Mm-hmm. It was very uncommon to see anything like that in homes. Nowadays, it's moving into the home level, including sustainable power sources like solar, wind energy in some cases. All right, got a few more questions here.
Let's see. From Jason9511, do you replace the BMW's i3 battery packs?
A fair question. When we first got started, we worked on a number of different EVs, and we are so busy now just working on Teslas, actually Tesla Roadsters. We just cannot take any of the other brands and the other models into our shop. Eventually, there will be options for customers, but currently it's very hard to find anybody that's willing or able to work on a EV. In the case of this BMW, you always have the dealer, but the dealers love the notion of, just swap the battery or just swap the drivetrain.
Yeah, sure. It'll be a cool 20 grand in Tesla's case. Or I think we pulled that up in another show of the price to replace an i3 battery was somewhere in the 10 to 15K range.
Yeah. And in all fairness to them, these service centers are not equipped to open up large pieces of equipment like this, or have the skill level or the electronics or the test equipment to repair down to root cause or component level. And again, that will change, and I think it'll be aftermarket that will initially provide those services like we do.
There's a couple great comments here to bring in the new year from TR Falco. How often do you have to? Falco wants to know how often you have to pull Model S modules.
Well, of course, bear in mind that what we see are the aberrations, the anomalies, the broken cars. So it's difficult for us to gauge because we don't see all of the cars that are out there on the road running quite successfully. So the answer to that in our case would be every single one, because they come here broke, right? It's tough for us to get a read on what the percentage of failure is, but the overall statistics that you tend to read about and see is that EVs are substantially less maintenance than ICE vehicles. That is a fairly common statistic that floats around.
Yeah, now really the only two things that you fill up on are wiper fluid and charge. Mm-hmm. It's kind of it. A couple of little bits of love here from M-Law. I love the information you're sharing here. And on Instagram, Soul to Stone. Good morning, gentlemen. Happy New Year. And a Happy New Year to you too, Soulstone. From Facebook, Lantern Light Technologies. Had a question about monolith battery refurbishing on Zero motorcycles. Is it cost prohibitive?
We've never had a Zero motorcycle come into our shop, but anything is repairable. And of course, the real question is it economically feasible to do so? I would say that based on everything we've seen for battery type repairs, it should be less expensive than an outright replacement.
Makes sense to me. From Ramp Life, are you an independent? Oh, this is a great question actually to help kind of put ourselves in context here. Are you an independent shop from Tesla, or are you independent of Tesla, or are you certified from Tesla as a repair shop?
Well, first of all, Tesla does not certify the types of repairs that we do. What they certify is body shops. And it's fundamentally because they don't have that skill at the service center level. They don't spray paint, they don't bend metal.
PPF.
Yeah. So they do certify to get some control of that process. In terms of doing the repairs on the cars, no, there are no Tesla certified, because there's no certification process. However, our partnership with Tesla continues to grow and improve. And there is a partnership, although it's not official. We do work with them. We work with their service centers. We collaborate. We share tech tips. We have even repaired boards for them. So I don't know how that will play out in the future, whether there will be other shops like ours that will eventually have that relationship. I would certainly hope so, because in the world of taking care of customers, customer service, the more the better. And if the competitors can learn to work together, that is definitely a benefit to everyone, including the competitors, who oftentimes are now able to turn a competitor into a customer and into a vendor. So we're 100% behind working with what appears to on the surface be competition. And the simple answer to that question is yes, there is some level of collaboration with Tesla, especially with their first generation cars, which we have an enormous amount of expertise with. And they are struggling to maintain the level of service with a car that only has 1,500 to 1,700 left in the world. They're primarily focused on taking care of the other models.
Great question.
Question, 8-star why don't they make battery cartridges horizontally sliding for easy maintenance without removing the whole unit? You know, I love that question, because in the critical power world, the manufacturers actually figured out that making modular, scalable UPSs, uninterruptible power systems, makes a whole lot more economic sense. They're even hot swappable, meaning that if you have a, let's say you bought a 50 kVA UPS, which is the size of how much it can power, and you want to upgrade that to 250 eventually. If you get a scalable version of that UPS, which most today are, you can actually buy 25 kVA power modules, plug them in, hot swappable while it's running, and battery modules while it's running to increase the size to meet your demand, your equipment demand. Cars will eventually go the same path. Not everybody wants to go 500 miles in an EV. Some people might want to go 200 miles and take 800 pounds off the car to increase performance. Or they don't have a budget for that 500-mile battery, and a 200-mile battery definitely gets their entry point into that vehicle lowered. So it's coming, it's just not here yet because it's not quite economically feasible to do so yet.
I'm going to update the picture in the background.
Oh, let's update the picture, sure.
And that's the Roadster, you said?
Switch out the Bugatti Atlantic, which is only 3 left in the world, made in 1936 to 1938, and we're going to switch it out with a Tesla Roadster. And it'll be a 2011 Lightning Green. It belonged to Bubba Watson at one point in time, the up-and-coming golfer.
Sure.
And
very small.
all right, there we go. It's coming up a little bit.
Nice.
This is a color in Tesla Roadster that was only available in 2011. It's called Lightning Green. It was actually, I think, a Subaru color originally. And
look at that.
it was my daily driver. I love the car. That was taken by Camelback Mountain. And we thought
Nice, there we go. No, that's good.
And since we're a car channel, we thought we'd throw up some cars in our background
right
this
there.
time.
Good stuff.
All right.
From Instagram, we'll do a couple of these, and then I'm really excited about this next article because it kind of relates to some of the trucks we were talking about earlier. But from Instagram, DJ VIP510, friend of the channel. I need to come in here and do some consulting on these live shows, Gruber.
Oh, absolutely. We have people that come every day to take tours of our shop. It is very unique. We even have Tesla people come, either ex-Tesla or currently still working for Tesla. And the reason they come is because it takes them back 10, 15 years to the early days of Tesla when everything was Roadster. I think we've got between the buildings now, we've got over 50 Roadsters here. And, people that were working on those cars back in the day are pretty nostalgic about that car. It's very special to them. So we do give tours every day. Anybody that wants to come by, just email us or call us. And I personally go over there and I take people through and show them exactly what it takes to repair electric vehicles to the level that we do. Love to have you.
You know what I think is really cool too? I just realized something, that you said there's 1,500 Roadsters on the road currently, and you got 50 of them here. That's like what?
About 3% of the world's population.
Holy, yeah, right.
Yep. Yeah, that fact does not escape us, by the way. It's a very special car, and yeah.
And it's also really cool to know that so many of them are out there having either no problems at all or happily here.
Well, we're going through upgrade time on the Roadsters now. Many of them now are 15 years. Came out in 2008, and you have deferred maintenance on an EV. It's not quite like an internal combustion engine car where you have an engine rebuild. You have to change bearings, rings, pistons, that type of thing. But there's the electronic equivalent of that in an EV that needs to be addressed.
Right, otherwise it gets bricked and then it's just truly a piece of artwork.
Sure, and the danger with the Roadster is, unlike the later model Teslas where parts will always be readily available. We've got, 100 or a million Model S's out there. I may be off on that, but please correct me if I'm off. But with that many in circulation, parts will always be available. With a Roadster, that's not the case. A lot of the parts, especially the electronics, are out of production and will never be back in production. So what we do, which is component level troubleshooting, repairing right down to root cause, is vital to keeping these cars on the road.
Awesome. From Soul to Stone on Instagram, will the Cybertruck have a similar setup to Power at Home? So I wonder if they're asking, will the Cybertruck have V2H?
We think that there are people watching these podcasts beyond just the regular audience that we have. The OEMs have to be interested in the feedback that we're able to provide. And if Tesla is listening and looking at the success of some of these other trucks, like that Ford F-150 actually bailing people out during power outages that went on for days, it's very simple to do, and I can't imagine they're going to miss that selling feature and that feature in the vehicle.
Well, and especially with so much competition in the space now, it's kind of crazy for them to think of, that we got to shove in all these new technologies and whatever just to try to keep up. V2H, it's not that it's simple, but at least it's feasible for them to throw that in, well before production, and we should hopefully see that this year. Knock on wood, we should be seeing Cybertrucks on the road by the end of the year.
They're talking summer, actually.
Summer?
Summer release, yes. Yeah.
I'll say by end of year.
So we've got a question from Autorama Auto of Dickinson. Sounds like a car repair organization. And he says, how fast is an in and out? You must have it down to a science.
I wonder if they mean taking out the battery, put it back in.
Exactly, the repair. The reason that it takes a while is we have to road test these vehicles. And it's not a slow process. When you try to speed that part up, sometimes you get a warranty claim, and you've got to bring that car from New Jersey back to Phoenix on our nickel. So we do a very thorough, lengthy quality control session with that car, including test driving, going through various charge cycles and charge scenarios, watching the trends before we release that vehicle. So it's not quite fast.
Makes sense.
Yep.
Do you guys throw them on a dyno or anything like that?
No, we don't have a dyno. I think that's related more toward the torque curves, and if we were doing repairs like that affected that, then it would be a necessary piece of equipment. So I found out something interesting. I'm a Mopar guy. In the last century, toward the end of the century, I rebuilt a 70 Roadrunner, a 69 Roadrunner with a 4-speed Hurst, 68 Charger, one of my absolute favorites. Put a 6-pack hood on that, painted it crystal pearl black, put Krager wheels on that. I had torsion bars on the back, 3-inch exhaust, big block engine. Love the cars, right? Well, I found out Dodge no longer exists. They were bought by Stellantis. What? It's a German or it's a Euro company that now owns a number of these brands.
It's Fiat Chrysler plus everyone else. They basically just did a big rebrand a couple of years ago that included everybody, which is kind of funny because you would think that they might centralize a little bit.
Yeah.
No, everybody seems to be still fairly autonomous. Chrysler still makes the Pacifica. Ram is still making 1500s, obviously. Mm-hmm. But yeah.
So anyway, what Stellantis is announcing is a Ram truck, the Ram 1500, and it will be coming out.
The EV specifically.
The EV. Oh yeah, this is Ram EV, and what do we have now? We've got the Ford F-150 Lightning. Well, Rivian actually started the whole thing. Mm-hmm. Then we've got the Chevy Silverado pickup truck, which is coming out, and of course the Cybertruck when it comes out. But the pickup trucks appear to be something that the manufacturers are focusing on. And let me see if I've got some more data here for you. So this Ram truck is an EV. It'll be 100% electric in Europe. Let me see if I can get my information straight here.
I was going to say, just in Europe.
Okay. And it will outperform all competitors, they claim, on the attributes that customers most care about, which they feel is range, towing, payload, and charge time. It's built on an STLA frame architecture. I don't know what that means yet. And they feel that they will have the best pickup truck in the industry. And it will be out by 2025. There we go.
A couple years late on that one, I'd say. Yep. But that they're still calling it the Ram Revolution. That's Rev R capital EV illusion.
So it looks like and they're not calling it the Dodge Ram. They're just calling it the Ram REV or Ram 1500 EV. There we go. So it was kind of sad for me to see the Dodge brand become obscure. That was a pretty well-known brand in the last century and known for performance cars and over-the-top vehicles. Does that mean that the other Dodge vehicles, like the one that's coming out now that is going EV, 100% EV, the Dodge Demon, those are all now Stellantis, aren't they?
I believe so, and it's funny because when Dodge and Ram divorced back a number of years ago, it was kind of a big deal because everybody was wondering what was going to happen to Dodge, since really all they have now is the Charger, the Challenger, and some Caravans still running around. But it'll be funny to see if they rebrand, if they want to go by a Stellantis thing, or if they're going to still keep the Dodge name on those vehicles. But it does seem to me like they're kind of pulling back on muscle cars, and it's a darn shame because those, the Challenger is still one of the most iconic muscle cars of all time.
Yeah. I just realized later on in the article, this Ram is being released next week. I was off on that projection. I don't know what I was reading there, but anyway, ignore that. It looks like it's coming out next week. We'll have more information. We'll talk about this quite a bit more. It looks like pickup trucks are pretty, in the EV world, are becoming very popular.
Very cool. From Soulstone on Instagram, or Soul to Stone on Instagram, will the Cybertruck battery in that truck be comparable to the Lightning? It's reportedly comparable, something like that.
We'll have to see, yeah. Got another question from Bill Wood, YouTube. Why did it take Tesla so long to get the Cybertruck out? Well, it's not out yet, guys. The design is somewhat nailed down. And Ford could put the F-150 out on the road much quicker. Well, the simple answer there is they didn't have much else to do, Ford, at least in the EV world. So, and possibly they recognize the opportunity watching some of the other successes like Rivian.
Well, it's not only that, but it's not a new design.
Right.
It's still an F-150. The Cybertruck is everything brand new from the ground up that had to be created from scratch.
Yeah, it is funny. And it's funny, actually. I was watching Tesla Time News, and they had tried to get a snowplow for their F-150 Lightning. It's a great video worth watching. There's just enough differences in the Lightning design versus the classic F-150, so much so that they actually can't put on snowplows the way that they normally do, because they actually had to lower one of the bars in the front end of the truck to the point where normally a snowplow would go. that they can't actually fit it in anymore. It's kind of funny. Like little details like that still exist in conversions like the Lightning. But yeah, you're right. It's still on the same exact platform as an F-150. So they probably, and they also saw Rivian's potential when they were still building their car from scratch. So Ford's kind of playing both sides of the field here, where they're not only converting their old stuff and being conservative in that area, and then also kind of being a little bit risky by putting some stake into some of these new companies starting from scratch, like Rivian.
Good point. All right, so burning question, will Tesla be able to grow 50% this year? The jury's still out on that, but the latest projection I saw this morning was that it looks like they may have hit 45%, so that's shy of 50%. Like somebody else pointed out, everything is looking good for Tesla. Everything is up. Production numbers, earnings, just the amount of vehicles that they're putting out into the market, the acceptance of the vehicles. It's, in Europe, for example, they beat out VW in Germany, which is very tough I don't think that's ever been done, right? But anyway.
Yeah, right.
Everything is looking bright and rosy, but the stock market is not having any of it. They're saying, "Oh no, it's there's something wrong here." Well, there's nothing wrong, guys. This is buying time. So that's what we keep on telling everybody, even though we're not financial advisors.
Not financial advice. I saw that. I was reading that the other day, maybe just even yesterday, I think. All the earnings reports are great, but everybody's saying it fell about 5 to 10% short of what Wall Street was predicting. So that's why they're upset. It wasn't as amazing as they wanted it to be, I think.
Well, the bulls have to have their day and the bears have to have their day, and the short sellers definitely have to have their day. And when you see stock just plummeting like this, short sellers are taking profits.
There you go.
But that's short-lived, so we're going to get some good news here, and before you know it, the stock is going to start to climb again once people realize what a bargain exists right now. I mean, look at Lucid. What is it, $7?
Oh, right.
What's
is it really
about?
only $7?
I mean, some of our guys here bought it at 20, 24.
Richard,
right?
what's Canoe at over there? Do you know?
Is Canoe public?
Yeah.
Canoe is public. Let me go.
I think it's a penny stock these days.
It's struggling. $1.23.
$1.23. Yeah, there you go.
Yep.
You could put a few hundred away there and sit on it for 10 years and be rich.
Oh, for sure.
100%. That's my goal.
Hey,
so that's the plan.
That's the plan.
So, but anyway, the 50%, we'll see. The stats are still coming out. I have a number of statistics here, how many vehicles they pumped out. It's all boring stuff, but essentially, it looks like things are looking very bright, despite some of the setbacks.
You think about how many orders are still on back order with Tesla. It's like, even if they get all of those, they're still going to be going into next year with just trying to catch up on orders. So they're going to be fine. It's
guys, we've got an image I want to throw up there. That 50s Tesla Model S.
Ooh, I'm excited to see this.
This is the AI one, right?
This is AI, yeah.
Give me 1 second.
What they're doing here is AI is beginning to really infiltrate a lot of different things. You can now, one of our guys here is using AI to write scripts. You put in a certain number of topics and out comes a written, I wish I had that in high school.
Yeah.
No more essay writing, No more, copying stuff from the back of the books.
Yeah, right.
Synopsis, right?
Okay, we got that up there.
No, we don't.
Yeah.
We
So
can't
there's our
copy
picture.
Wikipedia.
So
that is beautiful.
Yeah, so what they pumped in here was 1950s Tesla and probably some other keywords, Tesla Model S, and this is what AI thinks it would look like in the 50s. It's got
They got it all.
The bubble top look. It almost looks like a French Citroën, which was kind of curvy.
I was
like
about
that.
to say, and then almost a mock Aston Martin front fender there with the grille. Also, the faux headlights look kind of interesting. I wonder if you were to build this, you could make those as intakes.
Of course, AI wasn't
cool the
that
battery.
smart because I don't know if that's a grill in the front, but you don't need a grill with an EV.
You don't need it, but you can have it.
But it looks more like a car with that. And of course, there's even some chrome there because
the
in the
white
50s,
walls?
we had a lot of, the white walls. Yeah, that gives it that extra touch. Like the Ford, the 51 Ford Thunderbird look kind of like that as well. But anyway, we thought you would appreciate that. This is what our AI rendering of a 50s Tesla Model S.
I hope
like.
Bembley gets to take a look at this. He's a great YouTube channel who goes over car design. He himself is a car designer. I hope he gets to look at that.
You know, somebody mentioned too, there's a little bit of Cadillac in there with the wings.
Yeah.
And then it's got the Corvette spirit in it too, with the curves. But anyway, pretty cool.
Well, I think the headlights, since we're talking about that, kind of look like the new Roadsters.
Ooh.
Yeah, good point.
Oh, it kind of does. Can we throw those both up there? We can show the audience that.
It's sort of winking at you.
I love
I'm
that.
gonna have to find that picture. Give me a second.
All right.
Yeah, I can throw it up for Instagram here in a second.
But if you guys, or if anybody's watching and takes a look at the new Roadster concept and then do that side by side with the 50s Model S, there's a hilarious amount of similarity, I think.
Yeah.
Even with the grill, I mean, you look at that bottom part of the fender on the Roadster, on the new Roadster.
On the new Roadster.
That kind of it's almost like that 50s Model S kind of mimics that too. That's funny.
And I'm sure AI was pulling, or scrubbing information from
I'm sure this is one of their main
site.
images.
Yeah.
That's so funny. Huh. Nothing new under the sun.
A few new questions. We've got a TikTok question for an auto house. Are you franchising your operation or providing training? We can't yet. We can't. We just don't have the bandwidth. We don't have the staff. We'd love to do it. The business opportunity is there. Eventually, there will be learning institutions that will take over that function. But I think that anybody in our space is going to be so busy, it's going to be difficult for anybody to find the time to take on a project like that.
It's like a mix of being a mechanic and a computer repairman.
It looks like Bill Wood commented on that picture, Corvette's sister.
Agree.
Okay, I'm pulling that up right now.
Yeah.
The Corvette's older sister. Mm-hmm. Ooh, but can you imagine like an old 50s Stingray next to that?
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
There we go. Oh yeah, side by side.
Hey, there we go. You're right. There it is.
Yeah. It's got those winking headlights.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Very cool. Very cool.
There was another. There was a comment just above that from Chris on TikTok that I thought was interesting, and I can't. Let's see if we can find that real quick. Oh, here we go. Your thoughts on 300 Chinese companies working on EVs? That seems like it could be an industry game changer.
Yeah, good point.
Is it really 300?
I didn't know it was that many, but I'm not surprised. The Chinese are very good at looking at opportunities and immediately capitalizing on that. Chris von Scheinitz from TikTok, welcome. Guys, by the way, let us know where you're from. People always like to see where they're coming in from. Our thoughts on the 300 Chinese companies working on EVs, it's like Elon says, the more the merrier. The whole goal here is let's get the planet healed. Let's get rid of the global warming and the ones that are contributing to that, which of course is ICE vehicles. We need to change transportation. We need to change it fast, and we're running out of time.
But we can also have fun doing it because these cars are very good.
And like we've pointed out before, now we are able to, because of the level of disruption, the old traditional design rules no longer apply. These designers can go crazy with designs, and oftentimes they're doing that, yeah.
I have a question too. How long do you think it'll be before Elon dives into fusion? That's what we really need. We need him to throw a few billion at fusion.
Yeah. Well, the question then, would it have been money better spent on Twitter or on fusion?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'll leave you with that thought.
A little buyer's remorse there.
So do we report, here's a question from Mick5A6HAB, do you report to Tesla so they can improve? Yes, we do. And one of the reasons we do that, when we see vehicles that are aging, like the Tesla Roadster, there's a lot of information and data that we're able to accumulate that is not available to Tesla because they don't see the volume that we do. And we see trends. And it's vital for us, we feel, to share that with the originator or the manufacturer of that vehicle to help the service centers. And oftentimes we have sent them tech tips, for example. Hey, here's another aging issue that we're beginning to see, or a part that's beginning to fail.
Excuse me.
Resetting TikTok.
Seems...
TikTok is, we're
Oh,
You went down for a second, but we're back.
Okay. Sorry,
back,
TikTok, you were gone temporarily. We're here again for you. So the question was, do we report to Tesla so they can improve all the time? Take the window ferrule, the aluminum version of that versus the plastic. We actually had a conference with the design engineers and shared all of our information, even sent them samples.
Oh, very cool.
So, again, it's about collaboration. It's about sharing information. We all have the same goal in mind. And in a market like this, where demand outstrips supply, what's the problem with a competitor? You're going to get your
collaborators, right?
That you can't even meet. So what's the point in
Exactly.
trying to cripple a competitor? Yes.
One of the things that we do is and we talked about it the last show, is the window regulators.
Yeah.
That we make out of aluminum, I think, right?
Mm-hmm.
After we started doing that, do you think that was a direct result that Tesla upgraded those? Because I don't think that in the newer ones they're made out of plastic anymore.
They have not upgraded yet.
They haven't.
They're
so
still
they
made by.
are made out of the
They're
same
still made
plastic?
by Intiva, and yeah, we don't know why.
That's very strange. I thought that we had seen some come in that didn't have that, but
We actually modify. What we do is we buy new window regulators as well for our service needs, and we retrofit them. We put the aluminum version in there so the customer gets a longer lasting repair.
Nice.
Yeah, you said it could even outlast the car, right?
We're hoping, yes. Although it hasn't been around long enough for us to really see if that information is accurate.
There's no such thing as over-engineering.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. Bill Wood mentions that they're from Key West, Florida, so thank you for chiming in, Bill, from Key West.
Yeah. One of the things that I have on my list here, which I can never seem to get to, is 30 things that will disappear in the automotive world within the next 30 years.
This is both exciting and terrifying, because I love some of these things.
Yeah. So one of them was station wagons. Yeah, I could see that. And if any of you want to chime in, folks, please do so. Sedans, crossover sedans. They feel that those will go away.
Crossover sedan seems interesting to me because it seems like the crossover segment of automobiles is the biggest in the world, next to pickup trucks. That's why most of the EVs are crossovers. You look at the Bolt, you look at even not Taycans, but a lot of them are kind of this amalgamation of station wagon and crossover hot hatch, something in that area. It's never one thing or the other. They're now all kind of starting to blend a little bit.
So why that got included in this list then appears to be a mystery, but here's an obvious one. CD players, cassette players, 8 tracks, AM radio, and Bluetooth.
Well, Bluetooth, I don't see going away.
Going to Bluetooth, sorry.
Oh, that makes sense.
Moving to Bluetooth.
Yeah, that makes sense. Although I do love my I got a 20-year-old Lexus, I got a 6-track CD player. I'll be darned if I don't love that thing.
Yeah.
And the nice thing is it's in the glove box too, because so many of them used to be in the trunk, where you'd have to swap that out. My dad's 95 Infiniti G20 was like that. But now now that we're all moving to Bluetooth.
So 12-volt batteries is on that list.
What?
Makes sense. They're a necessary evil at this point, but we're going to have to figure out ways to power all of the devices in a car, in an EV, off of the main battery pack without that nuisance of having a battery, a lead-acid battery that you have to change every 2 years or so.
Don't most EVs have still have a separate 12-volt system right now?
Oh, yeah, very much so.
Okay.
And that's the problem. They need to go away. Now, there are companies that make a lithium iron equivalent of that, and you get a bit more life. But again, the point is, why have a 12-volt battery? Well, the fundamental reason is if you've got 400 volts or 800 volts in your propulsion systems, you don't want to pump that kind of voltage to your headlights or to your audio system or locks where a mechanic will be working someday and could get electrocuted.
Yeah, that could be a problem.
So we need to find some other method that will allow us to power the other devices in the car without creating any kind of safety hazard.
A reverse alternator that strips down, or it could be a step down. It could be a step down system.
Don't know yet.
What was that called? Things that'll disappear in the next 20 years?
Things that will disappear within the next 30 years.
30 years, okay.
Yeah. And if you guys want to Google it, it was a good article. Spoilers. They say that the aerodynamics keep on improving. There isn't going to be a need for spoilers eventually.
But there is going to be a want.
Yeah. My Dodge Viper had a 6-foot wing on the back.
Nice.
That was pretty impressive, But yeah, that was a want, I think. No, its actual function on a Viper, by the way, was at 150 miles an hour, it provides 1,000 pounds of downforce.
Oh, that's nice.
And on those sticky PS2 tires on a track, that car just ruled. In fact, when Dodge released that 2008 Viper, they took that car to 26 racetracks around the world and broke every single record on those tracks. They knew they had a winner, and they capitalized on that.
Amazing.
But now Stellantis will be able to do things like that, we hope, if they continue the tradition that Dodge created, which was making over-the-top cars.
Sure hope so. That'd be a great... Well, and it seems like they're still trying. We got the new EV Hellcat and the even Hyundai with their hydrogen supercar.
Yeah. So here's one that's obvious with EVs, custom exhaust tips.
True. No exhaust.
But do you think that people will mount them anyway for the look, you know?
Maybe?
I mean, some of these things are iridescent. They're the size of coffee cans. I mean, they're pretty cool looking.
Oh, yeah.
Know? And if you can make a little noise out of the back of that, I think that might still attract some customers.
Now you won't see trucks with smokestacks anymore.
Oh, yeah, that's another one.
There's no diesel in those.
Yeah. All right.
I mean, if they all switch to EV, that
right.
is.
Superchargers, nitrous, blowers, turbo.
True, no engine.
Yeah, won't need it. Looks like we've got a Instagram question from Russia.
Hey!
Welcome, Vitaly. Good evening, he says. Please help me solve the problem of winning or buying a Tesla car. I dream of a Tesla Model Y car. Happy New Year to all of you. Thank you. Sincerely, Tirzu Moldova Bandera. Oh, Vitaly Tirzu Moldova Bandera. I hope I pronounced that correctly. You know, I don't know what the buying situation for EVs is in Russia currently, but I can't imagine that it's good because of everything that's going on there. Optimism with me springs eternal, and I know there will be a better day for Russia. Russia is a spectacular country with rich history, a fine, decent core group of people, and I can say this safely because I have relatives from there. This temporary madness and insanity will pass, and it will pass soon. That's all I want to say about that. So I hope that in the meantime, you'll be able to find yourself a Tesla, Vitaly.
Good stuff.
TikTok, Panopticon.
Ooh, cool name.
What about improving on quieting the Tesla tires without gluing the foam into the inner wall? A wider piece of foam would do the same job.
It is funny that they do have to add foam to the tires just for that noise reduction.
Yeah. And of course, with an EV, road noise is more pronounced because you don't have all that other noise that's going on in the car. I wish we could comment on that, Panopticon, but I don't have expertise there on tire tech.
It's a whole different world if you start to kind of dig into a little bit of that. It's so funny how much exactly goes into that. The proportion of tread to air, all that stuff. Unbelievable. Slangway4 on Instagram. Favorite color on a car
for every car in the world.
Favorite color. What's your favorite color?
You know, my color preference keeps changing, and the reason is we keep getting roadsters in a variety of colors, and it changes. I used to like electric blue, which is kind of like your shirt, except brighter, metallic. Then, of course, my lightning green, which is on the picture behind me here. It keeps on changing. Most recently, I actually like the Arctic White Roadster because it's a clean slate. You can do so much with it.
I know a lot of people give white on cars a sort of, they're kind of like, it's boring. Every car has white. Some of them pull it off really well.
Yeah. I always enjoy it when Jim Stack, who is a local EV expert, chimes in. He's with the Phoenix EAA. And he chimes in and he says that he has a lithium 12-volt battery in all of his electric cars. And he says 8 times the life, half the weight, non-toxic. Jim Stack in Chandler. Yes, the lithium iron batteries. And there's a company here in town, actually, a gentleman that used to work for us, Sean Shearer, that owns OMU lithium ion 12-volt batteries. And that's what Jim is using in his cars.
Nice.
Yeah, it's definitely an improvement over the 12-volt lead-acid design that's typical in the EVs. You know what amazes me is here we are, well into a decade of EVs. and they're still using 12-volt lead acid batteries in cars. Anyway, that's a mystery that someday may get solved.
Just to let you know, we are at 1 hour.
We're at 1 hour? Okay.
Woo, time flies by when we're having fun.
Looks like Van Goat says Happy New Year.
What's up, Van Goat?
Thoughts on deep freeze charging issues we had here last week in the U.S. You know, there's a good video that I saw by a collaborator, partner of ours, Kyle Connor, with Out of Spec Motoring. And he actually braved sub-zero temperatures to go out and try to charge at some charging stations, EA, I think, Electrify America.
Yes, yep.
And he was able to demonstrate that there's a problem. What the manufacturers are going to do about it is, at this point, a question mark for us at least, but I'm sure they're feverishly working on it because, you know, obviously a defect like that has far-reaching ramifications, especially for the pay-for-view type charging stations. They're losing revenue.
Yeah, those videos are so worth checking out because there is, and it's worth checking out the video to get the specifics, but there is one particular kind of station that they have in Norway that is very reliable for those particularly sub-zero temperatures that Electrify America just can't keep up with.
Yeah.
And Kyle Connor found them in Colorado and proved that, yeah, that's the case. They got that much figured out. He also deep froze a Nissan Leaf. That's, what was it, a 2015 Nissan Leaf? 2012 Nissan Leaf, I think it is. Deep froze that for the same experiment. Also wild to watch.
Yeah, his videos are well worth watching, by the way. He really goes in depth on a lot of these things. But, you know, the engineering mind immediately begins thinking, here you have a charger out in the elements, and it's too cold and it's having issues. Well, guys, you've got electricity floating in this charger. Put a heater in there, you know?
Right.
It doesn't have to be 92 degrees in there, but at least bring the temperature up above freezing. Pretty simple to do. So maybe they'll take that idea and run with it. What do you think?
Hey, I think that's a good idea.
The other problem that they had was the charge connectors. And at least with the Tesla supercharger, they showed an example of the hook not working very well. And as people tried to put it back up into the holder, it fell.
Yes.
Well, people that litter typically don't pick up what they've dropped. In this particular case, they just left it laying down there, and some snow and debris got into the plug. So that's probably another problem that they're going to need to solve. But I'm sure it can be done.
Hey. There's a lot to look forward to. It's we got a whole beginning of the year, where we got a whole year ahead of us to see how all of this develops. And thank you guys so much for joining us for our first episode of 2023.
Totally, yes. We've got some more of these 30 things that are going to go away. We'll cover those in the next session. And yeah, we'll see you Thursday, 8:30 Mountain Standard Time. Again, we love the engagement, we love the inputs, and we're beginning to recognize a lot of the people that are coming in, and we welcome you back each time. Again, any questions you may have that didn't get answered, send them to us at ev@gruber.com, or if you're watching some of our videos, we are scrubbing the video questions that come up. In fact, some of them were used in this presentation today. So, we're in touch because you're in touch. Anything else?
Not from me.
All right, guys. Well, thank you for joining us. We will see you Thursday.